see everybody this morning, those that's online as well as those that are here. Our mayor will probably join us momentarily. I think he may be on his way. I tried to reach out to him. His voice box is full. But anyway, we'll get started and take care of business. If you would, please bow your heads. Our Father, we're truly thankful for all the blessings you brought into our lives. We ask you to continue to bless this country, Father. Be with those that are sick and need mending and need caring, Father. We ask you to also be with those that are traveling for Thanksgiving. Keep them safe, bring them safely to their destination. Father, we ask you to continue to help all those that need help during this holiday and festival season for Thanksgiving. It is a time of food, a time for joy, and a time for families together. We ask you to be with all of them, protect them, and help them through life, Lord. We also ask you to bless this council, that we may do thy bidding for the residents of Surf City. We ask all these things in your most precious name. Amen. If you would, please stand, and Don will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's old. Okay. Thank you, Don.
Yes, sir.
As I said, it was glad to see all of you here. I know somebody's got some presentations you're going to do today, and we are looking forward to getting into those. Without any delay, we'll go ahead and get started on our ocean rescue plan. I believe, Mr. Wilson, you got that.
All right, good morning. So last month we came to you with the Surf City Fire Department Ocean Rescue Strategic Plan. We kind of went over some of the highlights of the plan, and basically I think each of the council members wanted a printed copy so you guys could review and go over it. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have. This is a pretty in-depth document that we spent a lot of time on internally and externally to get that game plan and that, foundation in order to build the program into the future. So we would like to see this adopted through council. And, if you got any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Mr. Wilson concerning the ocean rescue?
I do not.
We need to make a motion, or can we make a motion, or what?
Later on down the line, yeah.
Okay.
No questions?
Okay.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to anyone that would like to
I make a motion, we accept the ocean rescue plan.
I will second it.
have a motion and a second to adopt the ocean rescue plan as presented by Mr. Wilson. All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. All those opposed likewise. Let the vote show that it was unanimous, and it'll be passed on. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Surf City Rescue and Feasibility Study. Who's got that, Kyle?
Mr. Price will be giving the presentation.
I'm sorry, point of order. If Mr. or Councilman Shugarts is going to participate remotely, I think we need to have a motion and a vote on that.
Thank you. We do have one of our council members who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but he's here with us via virtual visual. I need a motion to allow that to take place and for his vote to count.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion to have a second.
I'll second it.
Have a second. All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Let the record reflect that it was unanimous. Thank you for that, council.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Okay, David.
Morning, council. It's okay with y'all. I'd like to move around the galley a little bit.
Seth.
Thank you. Surf City just completed a reuse study, a feasibility study to see if reuse is a good practical option for this town. Here are some of the highlights I'm going to present today. Forgive me if I mess this thing up. Second time using it, count this morning. What is reuse water? Reuse water is the treated wastewater that is treated to the second highest standard under the law. The only higher standard is groundwater, which is pretty difficult and to reach. This water could be used for irrigation and other non-potable sources such as soil compaction, dust control, concrete production and cooling water, toilet flushes and fire prevention, if it's separated from our potable water supply altogether, it has to be completely separate in houses and in the ground. There can be no mixing. Decorative ponds, street sweeping, sewer cleaning, and vehicle washing. Those are all the permitted limits or uses for this water. The history of the Surf City Reuse Project. The town has been working on this since early 2020. We gained the support of both DEQ and the Corps of Engineers when we were originally working on this back in 2020. Unfortunately, with the delay of the beach renourishment project, we also put this on hold. Once the project restarted, we immediately got back to work on it. The general idea of this project is to convert one of our main lift stations, and those that don't know, we have two of them, one on the island by the water tower and one off Aldridge Boulevard, into a miniature treatment system, or what we call a scalping plant. And we would then utilize the island water tower as a reuse water storage, and utilize reused water to irrigate newly planted vegetation in coordination with the beach nourishment project. Irrigation will be necessary to establish the new plant material on this for additional benefit. Give you an idea, back when we were first dealing with the beach renourishment, Surf City obtained a 60-foot easement the whole length of the town that's going to be used for vegetation and special plantings, live oaks, stuff like that. Some of the advantage of reuse is the gain of capacity on all irrigation areas in which the town has control. That's the key. We have to control it. We have to say when it gets watered. With a 60-foot easement on the dune project, that counts. Any parkland that we have, we'd utilize it for that, or any town facilities that need irrigation. This equates to about 400,000 gallons per day when added up just the dune irrigation and a portion of the new parkland. Or over 1,000 homes. The fees that could be collected off this and system development fees is over $10 million. The town would have a greater variety and healthier vegetation on the dune project due to having a reliable water source. Plants love this water. It's nutrient rich, it's safe, but it is nutrient rich. And we'll be able to spray as much as we want because we have plenty of sewer. Water is a commodity. So, like I said, we could have live oaks and other varieties that are stronger plants than what the Corps would naturally put there.
David, could have stopped you right there to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
On the collect, you said $10,221,000 roughly. Is that over the life of the system, or is that, what does that break down to?
Yeah, that is the upfront cost and system development fees. So when someone applies for a building permit, they got two what we call system development fees, one for water, which is $3,000, and one which is sewer, which is $9,200. 9,200 times 1,100 is that number. So that's just what they'll pay in sewer fees up front, not counting operation cost. They'll still have a monthly bill on top of that. So yeah, this is what we get as soon as the home's built. Then after the home's built, people live in there, then we get a monthly fee.
So it's basically in the life of the project, or whatever it may be, because we're not going to have 1,000 homes built in a year. But
No, well, we'll get into that a little bit later, but that is calculated later in the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Residents in certain areas may have a less expensive option for irrigation. Just to put that in perspective, during the summertime, a third of our water use goes on irrigation. So like I said, it would be a great opportunity for the residents, if they don't mind using this water, to have a much cheaper system since it's only going on the ground anyways. It would reduce our reliance on our water source and aquifer. That's a problem, not so much in Surf City, but other parts of the state. With population booming in North Carolina, it puts more and more of a strain on our aquifers and our clean water supplies. This will reduce that. So instead of spraying good water out of aquifer onto the ground, there would be an alternative to that. Would delay the need to expand a water treatment plant and a water treatment plant for a short time. I mean a very short time. There's some caveats to that. This would take 400,000 off the plant, but as soon as we start building again, we'll be back in the same boat. So we'll have to. The idea is if we get this built in short order, that'll buy us some time to expand the plant.
Bryce, got a question.
Yes, sir.
Everyone that's on the irrigation now, if they want to go on it, don't we have to run different lines?
Yeah, that's part of the project. Is the initial part of the study is to run a pipeline from town line to town line along Shore Drive.
It's only going to be on Shore Drive.
As a first phase, yes, if it's successful. I mean, the main thing we're going after is the dune irrigation because that's what we control, that's what we get capacity. But if it is a popular project and it's cost effective to run it to other parts of town, it makes sense, but I wouldn't start off with that.
Okay, okay.
Is that line on the ocean side or the street side?
It'd be on the ocean side because it's considered wastewater even though it's treated. We have to have a 10-foot separation from our potable water supply.
Do we have to go back and change any of the easements that we have in place or the easements that we are, working on to finish the project?
No, we planned all this way ahead of time. Mr. Eads and Mr. Brewer had a great foresight, and we obtained the easements back in 2020.
With language within the easement specifies irrigation.
Is that a perpetual easement?
It is.
Okay.
It's for the beach project.
Okay.
Yep.
I apologize. Okay. Some of the disadvantages, the upfront maintenance costs, which we'll cover later in the presentation, the public perception. The public might not want to utilize the service or be agreeable to it being utilized by their homes. Like I said, this is going to be going beside and behind people's homes the whole length of town on North Shore and South Shore Drive. That could be an issue. The town did try to get ahead of this and conducted a public survey. It was favorable, but we had low participation. Now, I'll cover that survey in the next slide. The additional regulation and scrutiny. Being one of the first in the area, I mean this immediate area, Brunswick County does it to the tune of 2 million gallons a day. Oak Island does it, but we're the first to do it around here. DEQ paid close attention, especially since we're so close to town, to the coast, excuse me. So we'll have to have this thing tight because we don't want to be made an example of, to be honest.
I have a question. I hate to interrupt you.
Yes,
but I have
sir.
a question. Going back a little bit. Okay, so the line would run to the residences if people choose to have it, and then you would have to, as a resident, you would have to have your equipment to get the water from the line to your irrigation system?
We'll treat it like a normal tap. What would happen is we'll run it all along Shore Drive, the mains, and stub off about every 500 feet with the access or easement to feed the dunes. And now if somebody wants to come, we'll come install the tap and give them a separate meter. Then it'd be on the homeowner's responsibility to separate from their existing system and connect to the new meter.
To that, but we would bring the water to them.
Yes.
They'd have to do everything to hook it up to their system.
Yes, but they are the existing irrigation system. It'd be pretty minor. It'd be
Right.
cut here and connect here.
Yeah. One other thing, would they still have to use their backflow?
No,
Okay, so that would eliminate
that would go away because that's only for potable water sources.
Okay.
It would still be it'd be responsible to use a dual check.
Well, that might be a little bit of an attraction because of the fact that what a backflow costs for the homeowner to put it in versus if you hook up to this,
Yep.
you don't have to. Okay, thank you.
Another disadvantage is it is very difficult to get anything permitted through DEQ right now. As you've been following many of my other projects, we've had stuff up there for over a year and still haven't had it permitted. We have to take that in consideration. It could take years to permit this. That's just me being honest with you. It should be simple. It should be open and shut, but I'm gonna be honest with you. It could take a while. Timing of the project. If a project is not completed by the time the vegetation is planted, potable water will need to be supplied until we get the reuse completed. That means we're spending a very valuable commodity, which is our potable water, on this irrigation. It's going to end up costing the town money if we don't have it done in time. Risk of having infrastructure in a high hazard area. This is a major concern. If we lose the dunes in a storm, not only do we lose our investment, but we also lose our capacity until everything is rebuilt. Main idea being is what happened in Florence when we lost the north end. So like I said, we'll be able to isolate sections of town, but the parts that are destroyed, not only do we lose what we installed, but also the capacity that's allocated to it. Reuse survey results. In 2021, the town conducted a public survey on reuse water, utilizing Facebook, and we emailed over 1,000 people directly. Only 202 people responded, unfortunately, but this is the response. When asked, do you oppose reuse water being used in Surf City? 7.5% said they do oppose it. 92.5% said no, they're okay with it. If you currently have an irrigation meter, would you switch to reuse if it could be provided at a lower rate? 85% said they would. 15% said they wouldn't. If you currently do not have irrigation meter, would you request one if reused water could be provided at a lower rate? 74% of respondents said they would. 20% said they would not.
David?
Yes,
One
ma'am.
other question. When you say we lose our investment, is that something that, as far as like being resilient and having, we could get that back from FEMA, or?
I mean, it would be considered public infrastructure, but it's the timing of, well, the degree of damage that would occur. But the thought behind this is that with the federal project, we have that much more protection. And I don't want to say it couldn't happen. I never want to say that, but this would be located in an area that would have much more protection than we have today. But if we had something that was catastrophic, you know, we'd be in a position where we cannot get rid of this effluent, or would have to find alternative means, or like what Price was saying is if a section of the beachfront was damaged, we could isolate the system and then spray in areas that did not sustain that amount of damage. And really the good thing, I don't want to underplay the infrastructure with this, is that it is irrigation infrastructure, you know, with spray heads, et cetera. So it's not that we have to go cut roads or do something of that nature, but there is an inherent risk with the placement of it and our vulnerability for continuation of operation. So.
This is a picture of what the type of unit. I intentionally picked a used one. I didn't want to show you something shiny and new because it's sewer. Nothing stays shiny and new. This is probably more realistic what it looked like after a couple of years. Here's the first option they recommended. This is putting it at the main island lift station by the water tower. The green is the existing infrastructure. Excuse me, I don't see colors too well. Blue, I'm assuming. Purple, thank you. Are the new infrastructure that need to be added. The main disadvantage of this, there's advantage and disadvantage. This is a lower cost option because it's so close to the tower and it's already on the island. But we will have to acquire that parking lot in front of the main lift station. That means we'll have to make a purchase or agreement with DOT, and we'll also lose some of our parking. Something else I'll cover later on is this also presents a nuisance. This thing is a treatment plant. If anybody's been to a treatment plant, it's aesthetically it's not pleasing. So this would be in the center of the town. But this is a option. This is a linear progression. The green is existing, purple is the new. Sewer comes in, goes to a main compartment right here, and instead of going to our normal pumping station, it'd be diverted into the treatment plant. The concentrated sewer will go to the pumping station. The treated sewer, the reuse water, by that point, will go to pumping station, go into the water tower. This is in dispute right now between me and the engineer, but we won't know for sure until we get the final design, a possible second pumping station to maintain pressure and out to the dune irrigation and to the public. That is one option. The second option is very similar, except you don't have the containment, you have a jockey pump. So everything goes into the existing wet well, gets pumped out into the treatment plant. The concentrate goes back into wet well to the wastewater treatment plant. The reuse goes the same path from there. This is the second option. This is at the main lift station. We already have the land there to complete this. It was placed here because of the two options I'm going to go over, but it doesn't necessarily have to stay here. We might be able to swing it around the back and so on and so forth. But this just shows that we do have the land at the mainland lift station to build it all on site. The treatment units anyways. Same kind of thing. There's two options. Either we have a gravity flown into it, and then it go to the treatment unit, then the concentrate would go to wastewater plant, excuse me, pumping station, then a wastewater plant. The clean effluent will go into the system. Second option, everything goes to the pumping station. Jockey pump takes what we need out of it into the treatment plant. Clean water goes to our system. The concentrate goes back to the pumping well and into the wastewater plant. Some of the off-site infrastructure that we might need, this is a disagreement we have. The engineers believe that we'll have to have a secondary pump station after the water tower at the Welcome Center. The idea behind that is to maintain constant pressure. Water towers change pressure as they raise and lower. His recommendation is to go ahead and put a pumping station there. That way you have a constant 65 or 70 pounds instead of it changing depending on the volume of the tank. If we go with the mainland option, we'll have to run a new main from Aldrich Lane all the way to the Welcome Center, in addition to the mains that are going to go on Shore Drive, which aren't shown on this presentation. The cost, this is not including labor. For option A and option B of the island, around $7 million with another $3 to $3.5 million over the course of 20 years. This is the total 20-year value, about $10 million, $10.5 million. The mainland options, A and B, between 9, or right around 9 for both, about the same 20-year cost on that, around $12 million. Okay. Special considerations. All of our savings are tied up in other projects, so if we wanted to move forward with this, due to the sheer cost of it, we would need to acquire a loan. As such, the town will need clear direction of growth in order to pay the debt and keep the rates low. When we take out debt service and we don't grow, that debt service is still due. So in turn, we'll have to raise rates if growth is not encouraged. Otherwise, if growth maintains, developers pay that fee with system development fees. Operational costs were increased due to maintenance and manpower needed to operate the scalping plant and maintain all the dune irrigation. We're approximating this about $330,000. This takes that 20-year number divided by 20 and add $150,000 for two people, excuse me. In the event of a mechanical or hydraulic issue with the scalping plant, flows will be sent to the wastewater plant. If new growth is reliant solely on this project, the existing plant will be overly taxed in this situation. So we have a mechanical failure. The reuse water plant stops working. All that automatically falls to the default, which is how we currently have it. If we add 1,000 homes and this thing stops working, then all that's being hit on a overly taxed wastewater plant. Since the flow will be going to the existing plant, if the scalping plant is constructed, a concentrated effluent, the sewer will be more concentrated because we're taking all the clean water out and dropping the concentrate back into the pumping station, and that would then go to the plant. We'll have to change the operation of the plant if we go through. It could be done. It's just something to consider. Important definitions. This will lend to the next slide. It's just good to get this out of the way. We measure capacity in many different ways. This will help you understand. Permitted capacity, or what I call paper capacity, is the calculation used to plan future development based on the permitted flow of the plant utilizing state-approved constants. The current plant is permitted at 1.1 million gallons a day. The actual paper capacity is 104. So what this means is for every home that gets built in Surf City, I have to assign a flow per number of bedrooms to that and track that. And also assume a certain amount for the undeveloped lots. And that's how we do it. We have to use this calculation in planning and improving future developments. So we're at currently 104% of our paper capacity. Operational capacity is what they actually hold us to when they come to violations. So we plan with this, but this is what they hold us to. Calculation compares actual flow comparing coming into the plant, so what's actually coming out of the pipe, to the most restrictive function of the plant, which is our disposal, which is at 0.7, I'm sorry, that's supposed to be 767, that's a typo, 0.767 million gallons a day. So our operational capacity is at 90%. So try to merge the two numbers. What we have is a paper operational capacity ratio, which takes what we're supposed to be planning at to what they're going to hold us to. And we're going to go to that next slide. It's a little schizophrenic if you think about it. It's a little aggravating, but the constant that DEQ makes us assign is 120 gallons per bedroom. Now, commercial's much different, but just to simplify it, 120 gallons per bedroom. The national average is only 80 gallons per bedroom. So we have to plan for, was that a third greater than what we're actually going to get. So that's why you'll see that on paper we're way over capacity, but we're only at 90%. That's why. These are all the projects that are currently approved, well, that we're currently working on, and how they stack up with the capacity. Our existing disposal is at 0.767. Our paper operational capacity ratio is at 149%. The brine discharge, which we actually are expecting a permit to move forward on that next week, actually. We've actually made some headway on that. We'll gain 0.6 MGD. Disposal doesn't change because we're not adding disposal. We're redirecting existing flow. So don't let that confuse you. But that does drop our ratio down to 142%. High rate infiltration, if you see pilot, what that means is we're starting off with something smaller in order to make sure it works, but it's expandable. So these two you see pilot next to is, yeah, that's a small number right now because we're starting off small to make sure it works. But if it does work, we can expand it out. So high rate infiltration, 0.40 MGD. That brings us up to 0.8 million gallons a day of disposal, drops our ratio down to 135%. Subsurface, same deal as pilot. That's going to yield us 150 on the pilot. Going to bring our total disposal up to 0.957 million gallons a day, drops us down to 113%. The reuse, if approved, get us 0.4 million gallons a day, gets up to 1.357 million gallons a day, drops our ratio down to 80%. The Cape Fear discharge, that's a really big project. We're still chugging away at that. That a year 2.2, brings it up to 3.557. That drop our ratio down to 30%. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends moving forward with the mainland reclaim station. The main reasons behind this is the island site would be a visual and odor nuisance due to its location. If island is selected, the town will have to acquire land from DOT, which with a mainland station we won't have to, we already have what we need. And the mainland site will allow us to provide reuse water to the new parkland and some of the residents on the mainland. So it opens up our area and allows us to get rid of more water in the future, potentially.
You mean excuse me, you mean the new park?
The new park, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I talked to you about that.
Yeah, we've already studied that. The threshold was to make it viable to get at least 100,000 gallons a day there, and the initial study came in at least 100,000, possibly up to 200,000. And not only that, but Jody will have the greenest fields on earth.
Yeah, right. It looked like the best golf course on the East Coast.
If you got any questions, I'm available and interested to hear the desire of the council.
David, I have some questions and concerns. Is our island water tower, is it operational? Has it been, the reason I'm asking the question, if we take that out of use and put it to reuse, what's it gonna do to our water pressure going to the citizens?
Well, that water tower is currently emergency use only. We keep it full of water, but it's not in day-to-day operation. The reason behind it is when we built the new towers off the beach, they're so much higher that it made it antiquated. So we still keep it full and we keep the water fresh in case something happens, the main breaks into the waterway, we still feed our residences, but it's not in everyday use.
All right, and the other thing that you mentioned, if we do it on the island, we're going to lose some parking spaces. And it's going to also affect another thing that the council has done before, our mural project. It's going to affect that as well, that we've just approved to move forward with, and I forgot what the price tag on that is, but anyway, those are some of the things that off the top of my head I can think about. The water pressures, he's explained that, but we got to look at the parking spaces and aesthetically, if we do on the island thing, plant he's talking about, we need to either pause our mural project,
The recommendation was the mainland, just the
mainland.
mainland.
Price and I discussed this, and even though the island, put that scalping facility on the island would be a cheaper option, that is, I won't speak for you, Price, but in our discussion, that is infrastructure that we would not want to locate in that high hazard area, and it's worth it to us in the long run to have the actual scalping facility located on the mainland and pay additional upfront costs to run the additional line to service. So that's where I think the consultant's recommendation was that island lift station, but Price and I's recommendation is certainly the mainland location.
I'm sorry. The mainland facility would be closer to the sewer plant? Is that my understanding?
It would, but it has no effect.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking, is there an odor from this?
Yeah, it would be, yes. But if you've ever been to our mainland pump station, it's kind of tucked away.
Yeah.
It's on back Aldrich.
I've been to the Sarge Martin Road.
That's the wastewater plant. This would go at the mainland pump station.
I have not. I don't think I've been there yet.
You know where the substation is on Highway 50?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, it's,
no,
Onslow
the Jones Onslow substation.
station.
No, I do not.
Okay, if you're coming down 50, about across from Thomas's, I'd say it is, there's a road called Aldrich Boulevard. It's a dirt road. You go back there 1,000 feet, it's back there. Nothing around for a couple thousand feet, I'd guess.
I've never gotten a complaint from odor from it.
So it would be there.
That would be the staff recommendation.
I was just curious.
Just comparison of cost, whichever way the council has to go, the town does recommend a jockey pump system. The reason behind that is, say we have a failure, a catastrophic failure, which you have to plan for. The jockey pump fails, the station operates as normal. These other two options will have to redirect manually. So if someone doesn't catch it in time, someone doesn't see it, you got to take into account human error. Someone doesn't catch it with the potential for a spill. These that don't. If the jockey pump doesn't work, the mainland pump station acts as normal. So this is a true comparison of what it would cost between the island and the mainland. 7 million or 9 million for just construction. I'm sorry. Any other questions?
Anybody have anything else?
Is this a decision that you're wanting us to make today, or just to think about over the next month and we make a decision at the next workshop?
That's totally the desire of the council. I wanted to present it. You know me, I'm hyper, so I'd love to have a decision quicker. We will have to RFQ this, so that takes time. And if we wanted to have this done and ready for the core project, we probably got a year of permitting, a couple years of construction. So that's 2-3 years out. I don't know when the core project's going to come, but it's probably going to line up pretty close to that.
Yeah, ultimately, we wanted to know, is there any sort of dire concerns from council before we move forward with something like this? We'll continue to look at the economics on it. We don't want a losing proposition in regards to system development fees and getting that money back, but with the situation that we are in, we're constantly looking for projects, and unfortunately, we have to evaluate every single alternative that's out there, and this is just one of those alternatives that we're looking at, and with all of these, there comes a level of risk, unfortunately.
We want to talk about the possible state appropriation.
Yeah, sure. So, Price and I met with Warden Smith earlier this week to go over a status update of our projects and set some future goals for them to be working on in the next year. And, we had a good conversation, and this is something that they want to bring up for potential budget appropriations at the state. So that number that you see there, could be reduced with direct appropriation, but that is certainly no guarantee. But it is another option as we look at that. And then, of course, if there's any additional grant funding, but as we've seen with water and sewer projects, we don't tend to qualify for a lot of those grants just because of our socioeconomic and demographics here in Surf City. So those are some other options that we were looking at. So.
Just to add to that, we got a state appropriation for the digester project. When we do get those appropriations, the time window is very, very small to use it. We pretty much have to be ready to go. I believe they're going to try to shoot for July on that.
Yeah, I believe so.
So anything we could do ahead of time to get ahead of that would put us in a benefit, because if we don't get it done in time, we lose it.
We can do this on a consensus basis, but basically what I've heard is they're wanting us to, we can follow their recommendation from our manager and Mr. Price, which to stay on the mainland, and it's roughly $9 million or $9.5 million, something like that, upfront cost, and the total would be $12.5 million over the course of 20 years. But looking at it from my standpoint and thinking about it and thinking of the safety end of it and thinking of the infrastructure we'd have to put if we do it on an island, and can lose it in a day, in an hour, I think it would be safe for us to look at putting it on the island and move from that. Now we can either make a motion to go ahead and do that today, or we can put it on the consensus to vote on it in our next coming up meeting, which will be December. What is the wishes of the council?
I had a question
All right.
about what you said. I'm leaning towards putting the mainland, it out there at the mainland lift station, because it takes it off the island.
That's what we said.
Yeah, okay, if that's what you're saying, yeah, put it there, then I'm in agreement with it. We
That's the
move forward.
recommendation that David and manager made that I understood.
Yeah, that's where I'd like to see. I'm in agreement with it.
Okay. Any other Counselor?
It's just not clear to me what the vote's about to be. Are we taking?
Well, and maybe I can help out a little bit. It's just that essentially with this type of project, we come to you with a general consensus to say, yeah, we think that this is something that you need to continue to pursue.
Keep moving in this direction.
Keep moving in the direction, because ultimately, if we go through the RFQ process to select an engineer, they put together cost estimates and bid documents, and we're going to have to come back to a contract award for that. And at that time, this council, is going to say, yeah, we're going to spend the money on this, or we're not going to spend the money on it. And that's where that hard line decision will need to be made on the actual fiscal side of the project. We bring this to you, specifically this individual project, just based on the risk involved and the uniqueness of sort of how this is kind of set up for Surf City.
Jeremy, you got any comments?
No, I'm okay with moving forward with the process. I do like what Teresa said. A little time to think about this, but once again, we're not dealing with the fiscal right now. But I have no problem with the manager's recommendation.
You want to make that into a motion?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion from Jeremy to follow the recommendation of the manager and Mr. Price to put it on the mainland side. And if there's no further discussion, Don Helms seconded, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of following the recommendation and putting it on the mainland, let it be known by raising your right hand. Let the record reflect it was unanimous, and we've passed it to follow the recommendations of Mr. Price and our town manager. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, Jody, I think you're up. This is our Parks and Recreation Complex for Earl G. and Inez Batts.
Good morning, council. So all of you received in your packet a contract amendment for the Earl G. and Inez Batts Recreation Complex. So I'm requesting that we make a contract amendment to our current contract that we have with them. This would be moving forward to get us to the 100% plan, so construction documents, bid assistance, and construction administration. This would get us through the remainder of the project to finish, as well as I'm happy to announce get us into phase 2 and completion of that. We did receive some information recently that we did receive some grant funding through Land Water Conservation for our phase 2, which is our multi-purpose fields. So timing really landed on our side for this, so that way we could move forward with this encompassing all of phase 1 with our current contract, as well as phase 2. So I'm requesting that I would get approval to move forward with this with our current consultant, McAdams.
Make a motion to move forward.
I'll second it.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion to move forward in a second, and I think that's very timely because she has funds she has to look at, and it's things to be amended and keep our project for the parks moving forward. So I do have a motion to approve it, and I have a second. If there's no further discussion, let's vote. All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Let the record reflect that decision was unanimous. All those opposed likewise, so there's no one's opposing. Thank you. Thank you, Jody.
And Mr. Mayor Pro-Tem, I will mention that they did start timbering that property. Was it this week or late last week they started? So hopefully they'll be finishing up next week, and we'll see what the outcome of that is. But yeah, the property looks a lot different, but they did maintain the buffer on the roadside as well as adjacent residential side. So it looks good out there. So
If you haven't had a chance to get up there, put some boots on and take a walk through it. It's pretty impressive.
yeah, maybe this cold weather knocked down some of the.
Pretty impressive. I was up there the other day, and we took a nice tour. And
Good.
Very excited, so we should receive something back from that probably the week after Thanksgiving, towards the end, is what our timber consultant said, and they're finishing up, so we will have facilities and grounds that will go out there and caution off, make sure our no trespassing signs and those items go up before the end of today, so we can keep people off the property since we are, in the process of.
did you happen to get a chance to get with Chris to put up some of those, like we used for the concert? I think those stanchions.
Yes, so they're out there right now. They just need to be caution taped off. We wanted to make sure all the machinery came out, so late yesterday evening. But then the consultant will come back out and do a few little walks to make sure there's nothing that needs to be tied up.
Maybe you should put a few signs on it and get with the chief to see if he can just have somebody go up and down that road once in a while at night. I don't think too much during the day we have to worry about, but who knows? But I think, we saw that one kid on a bicycle,
Yeah, we have
electric bike. He was kind of whipping through the woods and that thing, and, want to avoid any type of accident. Thank you.
Okay, personnel updates, moving along. Kyle, have you got that?
I'll be more than happy to take that. So there's two separate, well, actually kind of three, and I'll try to go through these real quick. The first two are directly related to our police department and the need to add, these are just positions, we're not necessarily specifically just filling them, adding them to fill them, but we need them in the rank and file structure. One is an administrative assistant for police, part-time, temporary, and then the second one is the part-time permanent. The part-time permanent position will be a reclassification from a current auxiliary officer who is working within the police department to answer telephones on the weekend. So that auxiliary position needs to be reclassified to that administrative assistant position. And then, as circumstances may come up in the future, our current administrative assistant for the police department may be out for vacation or whatever it might be, and the chief would like to make sure that he can have somebody up front to be able to answer telephone, et cetera. So we don't anticipate any budgetary needs to sort of supplement this request, but we do need the actual positions to be included into our position classification system. So that's for the police department. I can answer any questions that you might have on that one before we move on.
So if I've got this correct, you're just asking for job description and classification be placed into the HR situation?
As well as if that current full-time position needs to go out for any reason, that the chief has the ability to get somebody in there to fill that on just a temporary basis.
This will not be any financial burden or anything of that, is that correct?
Not that we have calculated. If it did come out that way, we would certainly let you guys know. But we did look at a potential situation, which I can't really get into too much, but the chief would be able to have current salaries to be able to cover that, so.
When I talked to Mr. Brewer, we did not feel that it was going to be an impact to our salary line at all. We have some salary lag, and it's just a temporary position, be able to cover the desk to make sure that we have someone there to answer the phones when the public calls in. I feel that's an important service to the public, that when they call the police department, they actually get a human voice that picks up that phone and can answer their questions, respond to their needs, dispatch an officer and such. But we just need that position so I can get that person trained and have them readily available so we can call them and they can just fill in as needed.
Well, you're doing a great job, you've done a great job. But I, for one, I know you've got a chain of command or where you break down responsibilities and how you handle it within your department. And I don't know if Kyle's got that on file or not, but I think it'd be good for the council to see what is being done, breakout of all of it, where it's going to be assigned to and all that. I don't have a problem approving it. I think it's fine. It's just no financial burden, but moving forward, I would just like to see what they're doing, where they're assigned to, what the job duties. Of course, part of the job duties is what we're approving today. So I would like, when we get that done, to give that back to the manager so he can share it with us.
Yeah, and we'll, this falls in line with his current organizational chart, and I can just send that out to y'all, just so you can see where this position fits in with his structure.
Right. That's what I was referring to. Thank you. Okay.
Approve that?
Yeah, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay, I have a motion, and Mr. Helms seconded. Any further discussion? With no further discussion, we'll vote on it now. All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Let the record reflect that it was unanimous, and it has been approved. Thank you, Kyle and Chief.
The second portion of this, council, is to add the senior firefighter position to the fire department's rank and file structure. It's my understanding, working with Chief Wilson, that this was a desire to be included into the town's fire department structure back in probably 2019. So we wanted to make sure that this gets accomplished so that Chief Wilson can continue to elevate employees within his department who meet certain criteria, and adds another career firefighter position within that file before you get into the officer ranks. So some employees may want to be career firefighters and don't want to move forward with the officer position classifications within the fire department. So this will just be another step that Chief Wilson can utilize in his structure over in the fire department. We're not adding any new positions with this position classification.
So you're just asking for a classification, like another step in the classification process that has no financial things at this time behind it. It just gives him a tool to use to say, okay, you're not ready for the officer, but here's the next step up.
You can go from a firefighter 2 to a senior firefighter before you would move into the lieutenant captain structure, so.
Yes, that's correct. So basically, we mirrored our STEP program and career ladder just like PD, where they have police officer 1, police officer 2, and then they have master police officer. We mirrored the same thing into firefighter, firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and then senior firefighter. However, we never had anybody in that senior firefighter rank, and then, you know, when we first got it approved, it was good to go, and then with the new pay scale, we just want to make sure that it's added in that pay scale so we have it in that classification.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions?
I make a motion, we approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the part-time permanent senior firefighter position added to the fire department, and I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I will take a vote. All those in favor of adding that position, please let it be known. Show with your right hand. Raise your hand, Jeremy.
Raise your hand, Jeremy.
Let the record reflect that it's a unanimous vote, and that's been added. Thank you, Kyle and Chief Wilson.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we're down to number 5, personnel policy updates and extra time and grievance policies. Mr. Brewer, you want to handle that?
I would be honored to handle this one. We're going to talk about extra time first, and then we'll hold off on grievance. That one's probably a little bit easier to explain. So what we're talking about is FLSA exempt employees. So those are what people would traditionally call salaried employees, or those that do not earn compensatory time for additional hours worked beyond the standard work week. So most of these positions are department head level or high level supervisors who have a level of responsibility overseeing personnel, overseeing budgetary matters, et cetera. That's generally some basic parameters in determining an exempt versus a non-exempt employee. So exempt employees that do not earn compensatory time are afforded the ability to earn what we call in our personnel handbook as extra time. So this is non-recognized through federal government in their labor laws and standards. We do not have to acknowledge or recognize any time for exempt employees. However, the town of Surf City graciously provides that extra time for employees like myself and department heads that are sitting in this room. The policy in which it is written allows for 40 hours to be accumulated of extra time, and that extra time is accumulated typically through night meetings, special projects or circumstances. We get into budgetary months, and we might be putting in extra time to make sure that we're getting the job done, and then that extra over 40 gets recorded, but you cannot go over 40 to earn that time. In addition to that, the policy states that you have to use that earned extra time within 30 days of being used. So when I looked at this a little closer, theoretically somebody could earn 40 hours within a month and then use that 40 hours the next month consistently or continuously, having the ability to take off essentially 5 working days every month just by accumulated extra time. Now, I don't say that to say that we have individuals doing that per se, but I think it would be unreasonable to think that somebody could earn 40 hours of extra time and then take a week off every month. In our positions, the responsibilities and workload outweigh that ability to take that time. So what I had recommended was taking a look at this extra time policy and reducing this back to about 16 hours to be earned, and then still having to be used within that 30 days, so that employees still are recognized for the additional work that they put in during the work week when special circumstances come up, projects, or you might have an issue that requires their attention as most of us in this room certainly are going to have to address. So that simply is what I was putting forth and recommending for that reduction. You know, I just kind of look at it from a logical standpoint. I did pull all the accruals about a month ago, and on average, I think we have an accrual balance of about 21 hours within the extra time bank for those exempt employees. So I did want to share that with you and provide you with this potential update for you to consider within the personnel policy.
Any questions?
I would just like to
I
say,
do.
in my opinion, so looking at your report, it doesn't seem like anybody's abusing it. It hasn't been abused, 21
No, I don't
hours.
think there's abuse occurring, yeah.
So, I think making any type of adjustment to it is going to affect the morale, and you very well could lose a value employee over it. I would suggest leaving it as it is.
Thank you. We got, Mr. Shugarts wanted to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro-Tem. I just wanted to say that I concur with Councilwoman Batts that I don't know this issue or there being an issue with this currently. I don't know any employee that's taken department. I've never seen anybody taking 5 days off a month, a week off a month, and I think that messing with this policy currently right now, when we don't have an issue with it. If there is an issue with it, it should be handled with on an individual basis. I think we should just leave it alone and continue as we've always done. So that's my take on things.
Thank you, sir.
I agree with both of those two council members, what they said. I think it's if it's something that could be monitored to find out if somebody's abusing it, then I could deal with a one-on-one basis, but as far as it looks, it doesn't look like anybody's abusing it. So I think when you give people a little something extra, it's always good. And we do have a lot of great employees that do a really fantastic job. And to take something away, whether it's being abused or not being abused, but to take it away would might cause a little dissension. So I think we should just leave it alone.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm in agreement with them, and our employees showed the true value that we have as far as our good employees during that concert. I don't think there was a soul out there or employee for the town, supervisor for the town, or department head for the town that didn't show their support for the town during that concert. And I do not want to take anything away from our employees. I know, I know that if we have a problem with it, Kyle will take care of it. So I would like for it to stay like it is also.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Helms. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but what, Mr. Shugarts?
Is it possible that we lift that 30-day limit? Because that does kind of restrict if you have, for example, Mr. Price has to come in and work 4 Saturdays in a row, or Saturday and Sunday 2 weeks in a row, then he's forced to take those in that same month. So is there a reason why it's restricted to that 30 days? I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand the dynamics of that process.
I'll make you help you with that a little bit with my comments I'm fixing to make.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. With the what we're getting away from and we're forgetting about is exempt status and non-exempt status. Exempt status, which is salary, means you get paid a little bit more. You get paid for the responsibility you're doing, and you're paid to do a job, regardless of what the hours of that job is. You're required to do a job. That's what you're getting paid for. With that comes responsibility. A salaried employee can come in, he gets time and a half, and all extra time he works over. why he's not called an exempt employee. He's not on a salary. He's on an hourly wage thing, and they can gauge basically what they make a month, and so can the person that's on salary know what they're going to get. I've always found it and thought it was best to leave that up to a manager and the department heads to figure it out, because department heads, all they're considering about and looking at is getting the job done, whatever it takes, how many hours it takes. They don't look at it from that standpoint. They look at providing the service. An hourly employee looks at it a little different. He's giving up, and it's not saying the department heads aren't giving up time and away from family and time away from other things. They are too, but they're paid with an expectation. They took the job with the same thing, saying, you take the job and all responsibilities that come with it. Sometimes you may not work 35 hours a week. Sometimes you may work 50 hours a week. We have a great group of people here, and they don't want to abuse the system. But I think we need to make a distinction between what an exempt employee is and what a non-exempt employee is. And if we're looking at it, Mr. Brewer made the statement that some of them attend these meetings and come to these meetings, which they do. But to me, that's an understanding that either that's something that the manager can take to the department head and share with, or the department head can share it with their employees, whatever the case may be. And he can take into consideration whatever time that department head can regain some hours. If they have a slack time and they know that, our manager should be able to say, well, there's you coming in for a half a day Friday, or whatever the case may be. But we don't need to get to the point where these people or people in perpetuity can plan on taking time for vacation to take away and put our services that we provide our citizens here in danger. And I'm not suggesting they do that. They wouldn't do that, number one. But I think it's up to all of us to understand exactly what salaried and exempt employee or exempt and non-exempt employees are. One is salaried and one is hourly. And if you look at all job classifications, and when you go out and apply for a job, if you're looking for an hourly job, then you look at a certain thing and you get a certain paid an hour. If you're looking to make sure the salary's there, like I say, there's responsibilities that come with a salaried position or exempt position, and you're paid to get a job done, whatever that job requirement may be. And it can change from day to day, from week to week, from month to month, from year to year, but you're paid to do that job. And I think personally that through our manager and our department heads and our employees that are exempt, they can work this thing out and still be able to find a mutual ground to give our hardworking people in all our departments the opportunity to show the appreciation for the extra mile they've had to go and the extra sacrifice they've had to do. Excuse me. But to leave it like it is, and I understand what our manager said, he would like to cut it down, and I think we need to think about that. I don't disagree with that. Because here again, look at salaried versus hourly wage. To put it a different way, well, there's no other different way to put it. When you come in for an hourly wage, you can negotiate up and down. But whatever that job or that business needs you to work, he's going to call you in to do that work. If you're available, you come in. If you don't, fine. If you want to come in, you're going to get time and a half because you're going over your hours. If it's a salaried position and it's needed, the manager's going to tell that person, hey, this is your job here. It's got to be done. And you may wind up spending 50 hours that week on it. And that's something that the manager and that department head can work out somewhere within that 30-day period. Okay, fine. Monday afternoon, which is slack, we can take off or whatever, and still provide the services for our citizens. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask it to be cut, what he's asking to be cut down, but I understand also that we're looking at the thing, it may be a time to table it for further discussion, or you may want to make a move on it. Whatever the council desires or would decide is fine with me. I just wanted to make sure we clarified what exempt and non-exempt status was.
And I'll share, and thank you for those comments. And I'll share too with council what I talked to the department heads about, because I brought this up in a department head meeting, and I use myself as the prime example is this, utilizing this within the 30 days. I think every single exempt employee is going to earn extra time within a month to be used. But the check and balance of it, utilizing that within that 30 days is something that I can use as a tool to make sure that that accumulation is not getting too high, and or these employees are using it appropriately, or it does go away and then they have to re-earn that additional time. But essentially employees are not working extra hours just to earn extra time. I mean, I don't sense that. I never would. Somebody just sitting in their office just so that they can watch the clock build up. That is not occurring, and none of that. And I know that they understand that, but that's not occurring. But that's the action that I will take, understanding that most likely the direction of this council to move forward. And if you want an update on any of this at any time, I'm more than happy to provide you a report of what this looks like, et cetera. So I did want to just share that with council, that could be certainly a management tool that is used in the future. So
I think, again, it should be monitored to find out if it's abused. So far, it doesn't seem like it's been abused, so people aren't taking advantage of the situation. I think to take it away is, again, I said this before, I think it's going to cause a little bit of an uproar. Not an uproar, but, I mean, everybody's working appears to me that everybody works so good together, and the jobs that they do are over and above to begin with, and this is kind of like a little bone. And like I said, I think looking into the possibility of extending it, like Councilman Shugarts suggested, I think that might be something we could look at to see. But I mean, if it's not being abused now, chances are if you extend it, it's not going to be abused either. It just gives people a longer span to take some time. We don't want them necessarily to take the time when we're into a busy season, or like in the middle of the summer, for instance. But I worked at a place where we had it for 1 year, and nobody there really abused it. In fact, I lost a lot of time through dedication of what I was doing, and we have dedication here, so actually it might work. It might be working in reverse right now, for all I know. But that's all I have to say there.
Well, basically, this is what the manager gets paid for. That's why he's on a salaried position and he's exempt. So, and he's been trying to work. He's trying to get a policy, and this is his recommendation, to cut it down, so that he can feels like he's better to serve the citizens as well as the council. He just wants the council to know what he's thinking and what he's doing. But this is his job to do that, because all job descriptions we've got out there where these people are employed, it spells these things out. And it's spelled out primarily because of exempt status and non-exempt status. So I think it's best to leave it in his court, hold him to our expectations, what we expect to him. And if his recommendation is he wants to cut it down to 15 hours or 16, I forgot what it was he recommended off the top of my head, but then we need to hold him accountable and do that. I don't think it's going to affect that many of our employees. And if it does, he can bring it back to us. That's the decision. That's why he gets paid the money he gets paid, to make these decisions and bring them back to us so we can clarify them or amend them or do whatever we need to do. He said we don't have an abuse. He's looked at it. He's done all these. So I would still say that we ought to follow his recommendation. Mr. Sugar, do you have something you want to say?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor President. I do believe 4 of us stated that we would like to leave this alone. So I'd like to make a motion that we leave it as is and not make any changes and move it for further discussion in the future.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else have any other comments? I have a motion. I have a second.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Sugar made the motion, and Mr. Patrick made the second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against it, let it be known by saying, or opposed, let it be known by saying aye. Let the record reflect that it passed. Thank you.
The second portion of this is just digging around, and anytime that personnel handbook gets opened, you always find something. And we're looking at the grievance policy procedures. Since I have been here now almost 3 years, we have never gone through a grievance procedure, a formal grievance procedure that's outlined in the handbook. But there is a provision within that policy that basically states that the manager is to assign a what they call a PAC to review any sort of grievance issues that might come up to a level in which I get involved in whatever that issue might be. That policy basically states that I am to appoint 5 individuals to that PAC. I just think with the size of our organization and the way that personnel matters may come up in regards to some sort of grievance, bringing 5 people into a committee type of setting, that's pulling a lot of people from a relatively small group into hearing some of these types of appeals. So I would recommend that we take that 5 number off, and that's simply the only change that I would request. That way I can assign that PAC based on how I think it needs to look, instead of pulling 5 separate individuals from potentially 5 different departments to evaluate a grievance issue. So that's really all I had for that one. That truly is just trying to clean that up a little bit.
Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm liaison to HR now, so I would be one of them, and you wouldn't need but 2 more.
Maybe 1 or 2 more, yeah.
1 or 2 more, and I'm in agreement with him, and if nobody else has any comments, I would like to make a motion that we drop that to 3 instead of 5.
Okay, before we get into that, any other comments? Okay, Mr. Helms has made a motion to accept the recommendation from our town manager to drop the grievance policy to 3 people from 5. And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Batts. So it's been officially motion made and second. All those in favor of dropping from 5 to 3, let it be known by raising your right hand. Let the record reflect that it's unanimous. And I thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Manager. And the 2023 calendar for the council. You want to handle that, or you want to call it out?
I believe your clerk is going to handle this one.
So you have the council calendar in front of you for the proposed dates for next year. The one change that's not printed on there that I think we might see is for the November meeting to be held on the 8th, if you haven't made that change on your paper. And then the other calendars are behind that, including the holiday calendar, planning board, board of adjustment, and the review committee.
Okay, our clerk had sent this information out to us earlier and asked for feedback and has gotten the feedback and compiled the calendars for 2023 made upon our suggestions of when we could be available, when we wanted to have the dates moved. The only one that was left in question, as she said, was the November the 1st meeting moved to November the 8th. And that has been done here today. Does anyone else have any other questions on these calendars? Okay, do I have a
Motion, we approve it.
I have a motion to approve the calendars as presented with
second it.
correction of November the 8th. Mr. Koloski has seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. Let the record reflect that the vote was unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Rowley. Let's see, what else we got? Regular resolution to delegate leasing authority to the manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor Pro-Tem. So it has come up in the last, say, 30 to 60 days, renewed interest of leasing just portions of the old police department facility on the island. So general statutes are pretty restrictive in regards to what can be approved by either the manager or council for leasing ability. Generally, anything over a year lease term falls similarly into essentially the sale of property There's some minor differences, but it can become long and drawn out. So I think appropriately, the General Assembly allows for boards or councils like this to delegate authority to the manager to be able to lease portions of real property or lease portions of property for a term of a year or less. So a resolution would be required to provide that sort of authority. This is what that resolution does, and it would be the intention to utilize this authority to be able to lease just portions of the police department facility. That's really the only surplus areas that we have within town that this would be applied towards. Further, if council is generally in agreement with this sort of delegation, I think it would be appropriate to have, to be able to work with the attorney, have a form lease, prepared based on terms that we see fit, and carry that forward with the potential adoption of this resolution in December. That way, you know that there's certain criteria that are established, are consistent. There's no varying from what those lease terms may look like, and that's going to be essentially utilizing standard forms, cost per square foot, et cetera, and how we would deal with that. So that's this would be the first step in being able to look at potentially leasing portions of that police department property.
Thanks, sir. Does anyone have any discussion, anything they'd like to add to it, take away, whatever?
I would like to ask the question to the manager.
Okay.
If we so see fit to go with a leasing company that would take the town basically all the way out of it, except that we would set stipulations on us doing the maintenance and them not hiring somebody, that they would have to contact us first, is that gonna affect the potential leasing that you have some people that want to lease it now? Is that going to affect that to where we don't get that leased, so we could accrue some money back of what we've been paying, that we could accrue it back to the town? Is that going to affect that? If we do that, is that going to throw a kink in your ability to lease that property?
Well, I just need to know, I would need to know what the major concerns would be, but for these short, again, we're talking about a year or less leases. So my thought on this would be that within that form lease agreement, it clearly states who's going to be responsible for what, and certainly any sort of capital projects or investments back into that facility, I think we need to control anyway. Right. A third-party leasing agent, we tried to go through this process before. There was when we were trying to sell the property, and we ended up with a long-term lease in front of us, where there certainly would have been commission paid to that representative that was representing the town. So I looked at these as sort of single office leases, and for a very short amount of time. I don't want to do anything where there's any sort of concern of risk on the town. So again, if there's an opportunity to bring something back to the board as far as I would almost look at it as like a lease package that Brian and I could work on, I'd be more than happy to do that. I'll look to you, Carla. There hadn't been any major sense of extreme urgency that we would lose any of this potential. But I do feel like we as the town on a bigger picture are in the position to be able to look at some of these options, as opposed to where we were at a couple years ago, where we wanted to sell the police department. So there's just an opportunity for us to get to maybe garner a little bit of income. And honestly, I felt like the small amount of leased area and the short amount of time, the return or the revenue that we would realize on these things is going to be fairly minimal.
Thanks, sir.
But I'm happy to do this any way that this board feels comfortable.
Well, I think, we got some property sitting there where it's not generating anything, and you work within a 12-month period to generate something, 12 months or less on what you've got in mind. You're just asking the authority to do that, to keep it from 12 months or less. I don't see that as being a problem. And if we can get any revenue out of it, that'll be great. That'll be something that we didn't have. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say on it?
My only concern would be I just don't want to get into a situation that we were in before with the EMA, which was during Hurricane Florence, the building had some damage and the tenants had to move out, and ultimately we ended up paying out to for whatever damages they had during that time frame. So I just don't want to. I want to make sure that we are not getting into a situation again like that situation.
I understand. I was there when that situation was originally put out, and it wasn't well thought out and well done. I agree with you, but I don't think it'll go this way from this point on.
Sure. If council's okay with it, get Brian involved in this to get that package together, and as I've done before, is work with the delegated council member, on this board to make sure that package is complete and it gets carried forward to y'all, so you see it before you vote on any final resolution. Or even, I guess, before I execute any leases, we could still adopt the resolution December to keep the ball rolling, and then make sure that package gets blessed, by that delegated council member.
And we can include a force majeure clause that would
French.
exonerate the. I think it's Latin, actually.
A little French to me.
Act of God clause to where the town doesn't have any responsibility or liability if the place is.
Well, and I think too that, with the small areas and short term, I would not be in the position in which I think that we need to be putting a bunch of money into these spaces. Now if we get a tenant that wants to rent the entire upstairs or lease the entire upstairs for a 5-year period, and we can see what that revenue looks like, I think that we absolutely should be in a position to do an upfit or have some sort of allowance that would go to that tenant. And I do think that we will get something of that nature in this, hopefully in the future. But these small things, I think you go into it with what you got. I mean, I don't think there should be any expectations that, we're going to replace windows or, do something major, because we're never going to see the return on something like that. So
I'd probably like to see this packet you're talking about.
Yeah.
Before we make a decision. Also, what would be the cost of an outside agency to come in and do this for us?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember what their fees were. It was a percentage of what that lease was. Carla, do you remember?
I think last check was maybe around 15%.
Yeah.
I worked for a developer in New York, and office buildings. He used to build them. He owned them. He built them, and he took charge of any of the people that were coming in. They would post it. I don't know if he had a realtor's license or not. I don't remember back that far, but he was in full control of what would go on. So he would negotiate with the new tenant coming in. Okay, well, you want to change the space, it's on you. But our people will do the work. I mean, he had it sewed up like that. So, I'm not so sure. But I'd like to see a packet to see.
Yeah, we can do that. And that was things that we were talking about with a potential larger floor area and larger term lease is, you might get a upfit allowance of X amount of dollars, but the town has to approve what you're doing up there, so that we don't end up with something that, we have purple hardwood or whatever, something crazy.
We did the same thing. We'd have to approve the build or the renovation or what have you.
And having a leasing company would limit you a little bit, whereas right now, having people asking about it and already having people interested, and these smaller leases, like he said, for a year or less.
Well, I would just be
handle.
curious to see what it would cost, because cost is a factor, or would be a factor, I would think.
Could we delay this until you got some kind of package?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any kind of a vote on this until you had a package before us and we look at this and we have a perfect representative with Teresa. She's in real estate to look at this until give us a packet and let us look over it and go over it and discuss it and then vote on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That gives us time to December work session. And again, if I felt like there's an urgency with this, I would let you know that. I mean, we're going to pay the electric bill next month over there and keep the water on. So we're fine with that. I appreciate the feedback and some of the direction provided. That we'll get that together and get it back to you in December.
Can I make a motion to table this at the present time?
There's no need to.
We don't need to.
We don't
We
need
can get
to.
a consensus to do that.
Okay.
That's the same thing, which is basically what we've got.
I've got my marching orders on it, so we're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Legislative priorities for 2023.
Yes, ma'am. So what I like to do is make sure that we stay focused on the things that we need additional help with within the town. Coming up on the next legislative session, specifically at the state level, I put together a few legislative priorities. Again, a reminder, we will have a new Senate representative this year in Senator Brent Jackson, who represents District 9. And then, of course, our Representative Carson Smith, who his district changed, but he's still our representative in District 16. So I'll go through these really quick and give you a brief overview as to what the background or reasoning is. I did send this request out to the department heads if they were having challenges with anything in their operations, so that there was an ability to see if we couldn't work on it. A prime example of that is, what Price and I were talking about with wastewater effluent disposal, and then, something that Jody and I are working on with this gap funding. So the first item is our state beach nourishment funding. So the state appropriated funds in their biannual budget, I believe $14 million each year to cover the local cost share from the what was the North Hopsville Beach Surf City Federal Beach Project. Well, that money is going to be sitting there in the state coffers, and we need our legislators to really look at this and protect Surf City for our local share of what that federal project is going to cost. And I think that we need to take this a step further and help them understand and recognize that a federal beach project is going to bring substantial protection to our coast, to our infrastructure, to our investments, our resiliency in bringing tourism dollars back to the state following a storm. So if there's any assistance that they can provide through the budget process to make sure that full amount stays appropriated with the federal project, then I think we need to fight for that. So that's where that item is on the list. And when we communicate this to our legislators, I'll be prepared to put a quick bullet point together so that they understand the importance of it. The second item is ever important for, I would say, from here until eternity, is our resiliency projects. That resiliency projects, basically hit everybody, every department and operation of the town. But Specifically, we would like to see their continued investment in that Resilient Coastal Communities program, potentially having a annual recurring funding for programs like that. We are working our way through the phase 3 of that project. We will need funding for phase 4 to actually implement the plan or design that gets prepared through that phase 3 project. So we just want to keep this on the top of their radar. I think that they've been doing a good job over the last several years at appropriating funds for flood projects, for stormwater projects, beach nourishment, et cetera. So just want to keep that on the top of their radar and let them know that that's important for us. The next item is looking at potential allocation of gap funding for items like the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. So as you know, we put together a grant application based on cost estimates, and they are estimates at that point, to bring us to a full project and then ultimate award. So the town has done a fantastic job at getting those grants and applying them to the parks, but certain circumstances outside of our control, once we get these projects to bid, we're going to see inflation kick in, and the cost to complete this project is going to, in my opinion, is going to far exceed what the grant appropriation is going to cover. So I think we need to be able to communicate with our legislators to say, specifically when we start getting some of these proposals back, you know, are they 20% more than what the initial cost estimate was? Were they 30% more? And see if the state is going to be willing to make appropriation back into that trust fund to then delegate back to the grantees in that process. So I think that's something that we can communicate with our state representatives on and kind of get a feeling for where they might be at with that. And then lastly on this list is wastewater effluent disposal. So again, as Price had mentioned and what we had talked about earlier, is I hate to say it, but we consistently need the assistance from anywhere we can get to be able to see projects through, keep state regulators moving forward and reviewing applications, looking for funding, whether that be through direct appropriations or making grants, et cetera. But wastewater effluent disposal is of utmost importance to the town. You know, so I wanted to make sure that stays on our list and that we continue to push for that effort. Those are the 4 main topics that I have. Would love to know if you have any additional items. If we do have additional items, maybe something comes up we were unaware of or could not foresee, we can always add these to the list. And in speaking with Warden Smith and our legislators as well, it looks like early February will be a good time to go to Raleigh. I initially had thought that might be January, but they're really doing just their housekeeping stuff in January, and we don't want to bother them. But when they get there in February, they're ready to get working, and we want to make sure that we're there to go see them, and they'll hopefully appreciate seeing us. So that's what I have for our state priorities. I'm going to continue to work on the federal. A lot of the federal stuff aligns with sort of our TISPC needs, but I'll continue working on that and bring that back to you next month. But the state one, I wanted to make sure that you guys saw this early, and if you're okay with it, just a general consensus to create these as our legislative priorities for the state for 2023.
Do you have any questions, discussions?
I think we ought to proceed with it and work on this.
And I get a consensus from everyone, and is that okay working?
Yeah, I think it's a good
Okay, we have a consensus to move forward with it, Mr.
Thank you. And if there are changes, and I already do anticipate a change, I'll bring those back to you. This can be a fluid document, but as long as we get this down, we know what our focus is on. So I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add or talk about at this point? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second, we stand adjourned. I'd like to
I'd like to thank the chief for looking like George Clooney.
And I'm sure he's still accepting money for No Shave November. Nice.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.